You're listening to this week's episode of the Vacation Rental Business in Today's World podcast. You're about to start transforming your business and life with the information found here. We interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in the vacation short-term rental industry and supporting businesses. The information found here is a combination of brain science, transformational thinking, safety and loss prevention, and vacation short-term rental knowledge and experiences, all rolled into one to help you and your business to achieve levels you never thought possible. I am glad you are here, and now please welcome your host, Eric Thibodeau.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vacation Rental Business in Today's World podcast. I'm Eric Thibodeau, and I want to talk a little bit about today on the topic of later never comes. So I'm glad you're here today, and I want to share this little story. As many of you know, we own a vacation rental property, several in Gulf Shores, Alabama, as well as a property management company. And Hurricane Ida visited last year and did quite a bit of damage to one of our beach homes that we own. And we spent several months working on it, getting contractors. And back in March, we were there working to finish up the work activities. And part of the work activities involved bringing in the city inspector. So we set up an appointment. He came in to take a look around. And of course, one of the things he looks for is smoke detectors. And so we immediately took him around. I took him upstairs into the kitchen, into the hallways, and then we went into the bedroom. And this part of the house was really damaged a lot by the storm. I mean, basically the roof opened up and took some of the walls out. And so we redid all that, of course, with our great contractors. And he said, "Where's the smoke detector?" And I turned around, and I pointed, and I said, "It's right there." And I looked, and it was not there. So the contractor forgot to install the smoke detector. And he said, "Okay, well, you need to have that in place before you can get everything finalized." I said, "No problem." I said, "I'm going to do it now." I thanked him, got his business card, went to Home Depot, bought 2 smoke detectors, installed them, took pictures and sent it to him. And I said, "I appreciate you, understanding we had a lot going on." And he thanked me and he said, "No problem." He's going to email us our certificate of occupancy and basically show that we were inspected. But here's a situation where now is the time to take action. I said, "Well, I could have said, I think I'm going to wait. I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to do that later." But really, when we think about sometimes later never comes. And this is what I want to talk about today, how we need to be in action, looking at what are we doing now. So why does later never come? We set goals. We talk about things that we want to do, things that we say, okay, well, I'm just going to do that later. I'm going to, in my business, I'm going to take a look at my safety inspections. I'm going to check my fire extinguishers. I'm going to do the budget. I'm going to make the schedule. We're going to clean this property. We have a few days before the next move in. So we say we're going to do things later. And really, sometimes later never really comes. I had a discussion today with our team in our property management business about building a schedule we're doing maintenance checks as we go into the fall, assessing properties, doing inventory, doing safety inspections, and then some of them we're retaking photographs. And so 3 weeks have gone by because we said, well, we'll do this later. And so today we said, nope, we're doing it now. And we went ahead and made a schedule and we're working on it. So when we work from later never comes, as I just described in 2 different stories, where now I took action and I got what I wanted later, which was my certificate of occupancy. And then the next story, I talked about where we said we'll do that later. And then 3 weeks go by and we don't have the schedule or the activities that we want planned. So when we put things off for later, they don't come. So this is really true in our business. It's true how we manage safety. And really, it's something we need to take a look at. And how or why are we doing this? Because later never comes. People, we as business owners, vacation rental owners, we get consumed in our doing. And I'm the worst or the best, however you want to look at it, at doing. I'm doing a lot. You're doing a lot in your business. We get overwhelmed. We start chasing money. We start looking at everything else. Next thing you know, we are basically not doing what we said we were going to do now. We said we will do this later. So we all want to have things. We want to have things in our business. We want to reach our goals. We want to have a 7 or 8 or 9 figure year in revenue. We want to have whatever we want to have. But how do you ever have something if you never start? You have to start now to have something later. So think about that a little bit. We always think about, so I'll do that later. Pretty good example is I want to retire when I'm 55, or I want to retire when I'm 60, or I want to retire when I'm 40. That's great. What are you doing now so that when you're there at 40 or 55 or 60, you can retire? So you have to start now to have something later. Later never comes as a broken strategy. There is only now. Everything else you create for later to start now. So if you don't start now, it does not exist later. That really making sense. If I want something later, I have to start now. When you start later, later never comes, because now you have these things like timing and money and energy, and you're beginning to work from your circumstances where they're limiting you from achieving what you want to achieve. So in our businesses, what are we doing? What are we doing later? Think about in your business, what have I said? Well, I'm going to do that tomorrow, or I'm going to do that next month. What about safety? How are we managing safety in our business? Safety needs to be done now. Saying, I'm going to check that. I'm going to replace that smoke detector later. I'm going to relabel the pool markings later. These things need to be done now. And sometimes we believe that things are really important, and so we go ahead and do them now. But for the most part, we really, as people, business owners, we put things off and we say we're going to do them now. It's really a broken strategy. So we say, do it later. Why? Why does this happen? So people will get what they want to get when they get it. I'll say that again. We as human beings, people, we will get what we want to get when we get it. So I'm talking about, how do we do things now for later when we really want to always seem to be working? I will do that later, and then later never comes. But see, once we understand that we get what we get when we get it, it's kind of an oxymoron, some difficult words, but this is part of what we're doing. Why do we say we want to do it later? So two key parts of why we do things later is because we have lack of resources. We have lack of resources, or maybe we believe we have lack of resources. We create all the resources in our business, whether it's time, money, hiring people. Everything is something that we create. So having a lack of resources, basically, I'd say it's an excuse, and we're living in our circumstances. So get out of that circumstance. How can I create the money that I need to create? Because this is what we do. We create things. And we're not limited But yet we trap ourselves in our beliefs that we are limited, that we can't hire the people. There are no good people. There are no good housekeepers. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. So all these things are things that we've told ourselves in our minds and created these stories and these limiting beliefs that are trapping us from doing what we want to do. So what do we say? I'm going to do this later. And this is all really playing in our mind as a story. The second thing is fear. Fear keeps us from doing things later, procrastinating. I will do this later. But fear of losing something and not getting it back. So this is what's causing fear perhaps in our life or in our business. Fear of not wanting to accomplish something. Fear of, if I'm going to purchase this software, or I'm going to purchase this new cleaning equipment or this photography equipment to take pictures, will I get the money back out of it? Will I gain the benefit? If I hire this person, will I be able to do what I need to do to make the investment in this person to achieve what we need to achieve? So sometimes we say in our mind, I don't think I could do that. I'm afraid that if I spend this money or if I hire this person, I will have these circumstances. So this fear of that we're going to lose something and we're not getting back, their fear of losing something says, I will do it later. So we have to look and say, what are we fearful of? Is this another story that we're telling ourselves in our minds, that I'm afraid of this, so I won't do this now in my business? So we need to take a look at that and say, between lack of resources and fear, other than physical harm or fear that comes from that, really, most of fear is stories that we're telling ourselves in our head. Lack of resources or stories that we're telling ourselves in our head. And I know at times, maybe this is the first time you're hearing some of this, and it may be a challenge to say, if I don't have any money, then I don't have any money. So how can I do that? So once again, that's a story that we've told ourselves, that we don't have money. And then the fact that we say we don't have money, we put up defenses and we tell ourselves, and when we speak to ourselves, because remember, our words are powerful, our subconscious mind hears that and begins to say, you know what? You really don't have any money. Let's just do that later. So let's re-examine our lack of resources and our fears that are holding us back and doing things now rather than later. How do you think you're going to create something later if you're not doing it now? Everything that happens later starts now. Now may be today, now may be in 2 minutes from now, but everything we want later starts now. So if I start something later and I expect to have it later, I'll never get it. So we have to start now. This is something we need to take a look at, because what happens is we get in these comfort zones, and our comfort zones are nice little places. We actually live our whole lives moving in and out of comfort zones. So we should really re-examine our situations and our thinking. You don't ever leave your comfort zone until you leave your comfort zone. So this is how we grow, right? So we live our whole lives. We go from junior high to high school. We go from high school to college. We go from high school to work. All of these are comfort zones. They're always something unknown. I think maybe tied back to fear or lack of resources, and say, I'm not going to go to college this semester, or I'm not going to go ahead and grow my business this year. I'm pretty comfortable here. Maybe that's fine. But then take a look at, are you in a comfort zone? I remember a few years back in 2013, we were doing real estate investing. I've been doing a lot of it since 2003. And I was feeling pretty good. I was sitting in a presentation and we were looking, and I'd seen, they were talking about this apartment and how this individual had grown their business. And I was sitting back thinking about, I was pretty happy with the business that I had, but I was in a comfort zone. I was sit, I was sitting there thinking, you know, why am I just sitting, not growing my real estate investments? Because I got into a point where I was comfortable. The interesting part here is what gets in the way of a great life is a good life. We're comfortable. We sit around thinking, okay, this is good. Meanwhile, things are changing in our lives. And maybe some of us, that's good. We're comfortable where we're at. We don't need to change. But really, our comfort zones create these limitations for us, and we have to move out of them. For example, riding a horse. If you're worried or concerned or fearful about riding a horse, the only way you're ever going to break that fear is to ride the horse. So what I'd like you to do is make a note about this podcast and come back in 3 months and listen to it and see what has changed in your life or business. What can you do now? So that later, when you listen to this podcast in 3 months, you can say, I took action then, which is now, and 3 months later, I have this. But I'm afraid some of us are going to listen to this podcast in 3 months and say, I didn't do anything. And I'm in the same circumstances or situation I was in 3 months ago because I didn't start now. So how does this tie into our vacation rental business? Take a look at your life and your work, and what are you putting off till later? How are we working in our business? Are we doing things later that we should be doing now? How is this impacting your business? How does this impact safety of your vacation rental property, right? Safety, of course, I'm a safety professional as well as vacation rental owner, manager, investor. And I see it every day where we wait to do safety later because we don't believe the potential for the incident or the issue or the injury will occur. And I will say, okay, I will wait and do it later. And then a situation arises. It could be an injury to a guest. It could be an injury to one of our workers. It could be an injury to a contractor. It could be an injury to us. And say, why didn't I take care of that now? Like that smoke detector that I went out and replaced. Because I believe in working in the now so that I can have later what I want. So I appreciate you listening. I'd like you to think about these questions and join my Facebook group, Vacation Rental Safety, and post some questions in there or answers to these questions. What are you doing now in your business so that later you can have what you want? Because later never happens. Also, in my Safer VRs business, I'm going to be launching the 9 life-saving rules for vacation rentals. This is something different and new in the vacation rental world. And it's not just about inspections. It's kind of about the 3 pillars that I talk about in my business. One is transformational thinking, which is what we're talking about now. It's doing checks and follow-ups in our program, and then basically creating follow-up to look at how we're addressing safety in our businesses. And these 9 life-saving rules are probably going to be different for you because maybe you haven't thought about them in all these ways. And this will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be launching this. Hopefully we'll be seeing this you'll see it through Facebook, LinkedIn, or you can go to www.safervrs.com and wait for the 9 life-saving rules launch. But I appreciate it if you join my Facebook group, Vacation Rental Safety, post some questions, get some engagement, particularly about this topic, and also leave a rating for my podcast. I would appreciate it. Just starting off here, and as we end, say, why don't you do that now rather than do that later? Hopefully you have a good day, and hope to talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Safer VR's podcast with Eric Thibodeau. If you enjoy this, I would love you to join my Facebook group, The Safer Vacation Rentals, for more of the same. You can also join our email list at www.safervrs.com.